This is the pilot's view of an air attack on North Korean positions during the week of 26 July. These scenes were filmed by a U.S. Air Force gun camera in an F-80 jet plane. A familiar scene to veterans of World War II. B-29 superfortresses in Okinawa are being prepared for bombing missions on communist-held positions in Korea. These aircraft of the 19th Bomb Group are being primed for strikes on Hungnam in the north and on Seoul, main artery of communication for the North Korean forces. Bombs are prepared and rolled into position under the superforts. There, the bombs are swallowed up in the bomb bay bellies of the planes. Loading and preparing the aircraft is completed while the flight crews receive last-minute instructions. When briefing is complete, the planes are ready to take off. As these B-29s fly to Korea, UN ground troops are attacking in the southern sector where the North Koreans are massing for an offensive. The raids of these superforts on Hungnam and Seoul are planned to help cripple the long supply lines that run to the communist positions in the south. Over the target, it's bombs away. "72 tons of explosives on the Red's vital railroads. At an advanced fighter base in southern Japan on 4 August, F-80 jets are readied for a mission against the North Koreans. The cameraman who filmed these scenes is also going along in one of the planes on this mission, and you will see this air attack from the cockpit. These are oversized fuel tanks developed to keep the plane over the target longer. This fighter plane outfit has been in action since the start of the Korean War. Most of these pilots have flown 30 missions. A few have already flown 40 missions. Most of the following footage is taken from the rear cockpit through the plexiglass canopy of a T-33 jet plane. The ghost image you see is the reflection in the plexiglass. On the ground at this time, the Reds have advanced 75 miles from Daejeon, and the Battle of the Naktung River is in full force. The battle for the Pusan beachhead is beginning, the decisive battle of the war. This is the 6th week of the war, and part of the increasing fury you will see expressed in the threat of these Air Force planes as they zoom over the enemy territory. As more and more men and weapons move in against the communists on the ground, more and more warplanes fill the air above them. This is typical Korean scenery. Wide, shallow rivers, rice fields in the flatlands, rolling hills on the horizon. Much of the fighting in Korea has been along the roads. These roads have aided the North Korean tanks considerably. Chief obstacle to tanks in Korea has been the rivers, but even when bridges are blown, the communists ferry tanks across, usually at night, to prevent detection by the U.S. Air Force. Mission completed, the jets peel off and head for home. 3 August, the 1st Provisional Marine Brigade lands in Korea at the port of Pusan. These Marines have been rushed to Korea from California. Modern U.S. tanks are a growing answer to the Russian T-34 tanks, which gave the North Koreans such an initial advantage. A Marine tank battalion moves up a street through Pusan. These Marines are expected to equalize by skill and firepower the North Koreans' numerical superiority. Fifth Ordnance Company, Daegu, 4 August. M-24 tanks arriving from Pusan. The day is past when South Korean defenders had virtually no tanks and only relatively light artillery. Heavy tanks and artillery have increased in quantity, and U.S. arms of every description are rapidly equalizing such weapons as these which were captured from the North Koreans. These arms gave the North Koreans a great initial advantage, not because of superior quality, but because they were available in quantity for use by a great numerical superiority of troops. As U.S. weapons arrive in quantity in Korea, the myth of superior communist arms is rapidly being silenced. A visitor to Japan on 8 August is W. Averell Harriman, Special Assistant to President Truman. Former ambassador to London and Moscow, Mr. Harriman makes a brief stop in Japan on his way to the Korean front. He will report to the President when he returns to Washington. After conferring with General MacArthur, Mr. Harriman leaves for Korea. General MacArthur's farewell expresses his confidence in victory. By 10 July, 16 days after North Korean troops attacked across the 38th parallel, an estimated 75 to 100,000 communists, led by tank spearheads, had driven more than 100 miles below the 38th parallel to Chochiwan. Their chief objective at this time was Daejeon, important railhead and emergency capital of the South Korean Republic. Between the advancing communists and Daejeon lay a natural barrier, the Kum River. United States 24th Division and South Korean troops, rushed hurriedly to the front, were still undermanned, inexperienced, without tanks and adequate anti-tank weapons. By 25 July, with the police action against the North Koreans 1 month old, communist troops had driven down the west coast more than 200 miles south of the 38th parallel. Daejeon had fallen, and our defense perimeter had been pulled back all along the line. But there were some reasons for optimism. Our 1st Cavalry and 25th Infantry Divisions had entered the battle. We had tanks and 3.5 bazookas. Our aircraft were continuing to blast enemy troops and supply lines. By 10 August, after 47 days of fighting, reinforced United Nations forces had been pushed farther back, but had stopped trading space for time. They were dug in along a beachhead perimeter bounded by the Naktong River, with communist forces threatening Daegu, Masan, and Pohang in their drive for the UN supply port at Pusan. UN forces, reinforced by the 1st Marine Brigade, the 5th Regimental Combat Team, and other units, were pressing an offensive toward Jinju at the southern end of our beachhead. This counteroffensive was designed to turn back the communist threat to Pusan, our main port of entry for reinforcements and supplies. At this time, Lieutenant General Walton H. Walker, the U.S. Field Commander, said, "The fight is not finished, but I am pretty sure now we will hold the beachheads we need."